Welcome, everyone. This is Dan. Welcome to the Spiritual Underground podcast. Tonight, we got a little something special going on. It's a little different tonight. I'm going to leave all the commercials to the side, and we're just going to do what we're here to do. I like to use our phrase we use in recovery, singleness of purpose, sometimes. And sometimes I think that laser beam focus of what your mission is. I like to stay on mission. And tonight's mission is a tribute to a guy named Jesse Simpson. He was a friend to all the guys that are in this room, and he lost this battle to this disease back in October. So let me hang on here. Yeah, cool. This is on WHAS.com, WHAS11.com, Oldham County, Kentucky. A Louisville man was killed Friday night after he ran off the road and crashed into a telephone pole, according to the Oldham County Police. The Oldham County Police Department was notified of a single vehicle crash in the 3300 block of US 42 just before midnight on October 30th, 2020. When they arrived, they found a car that had run off the road. According to the department's initial investigation, police believe a man identified as Jesse Simpson, 41, of Louisville, was driving eastbound on US 42 when his car started to run off the road. He attempted to get back on the road, but his car began to slide. He then ran off the road and hit a telephone pole on the north side of US 42. Simpson was pronounced dead on the scene. Police said speed and alcohol appeared to be contributing factors in the crash. No other cars were involved. Thank God. This is Jesse's obituary. Jesse T. Simpson, 41, of Louisville, passed away October 31st, 2020. He was a graduate of the J.B. Speed School of Engineering at the University of Louisville. In 2005, Jesse began his chemical engineering internship with the Dallas Group of America, most recently serving as a director of process engineering. The Dallas Group felt like family to him. Jesse was a songwriter and a talented musician, playing in a number of bands throughout his life. Performing on stage and playing music with his friends was his true passion. He is survived by his wife of 11 years, and it goes on to list those people. I'll leave their names out of this. He is also survived by his two cats, Chloe and Jack, his three dogs, Charlotte, Pete, and his beloved Bijia, I think is what it is, a rescue from China. I think many of us met that and loved the story of that rescue and Jesse's many trips to China and him rescuing and bringing home, jumping through the hoops. That's the kind of heart this guy had, where he brought a dog all the way home from China to live with him. Jesse was a good man. I met him to begin with. When I first came into Spiritual Underground, I didn't see him initially, and a friend of ours, Jack, pulled me to the side one day and asked me. I remember right. He asked me if I knew Jesse, and I didn't. And he looked at me surprised because he said, "Well, he's an engineer." And I thought, "Well, what do you think? Every fucking engineer knows one another." It's almost like saying, all Chinese people look alike. What is that? But anyway, he was definitely right, because what he said next, he said, "You need to meet Jesse." And he was right. I did need to meet Jesse. And we hit it off immediately from when he come a couple meetings later, and saw who he was. And Jack made sure to put us both in each other's face. And it's like so many of the guys sitting here on this podcast tonight. I just instantly clicked with them. There was a connection. It's like, much like feeling like standing in a battlefield or something, and you run into somebody you don't know, and you're both on the same side of the battle. There's an instant connection that gets developed, and then as we continue to walk this path, we grow those connections, and hopefully walk out and win this battle. So tonight I want to take some time. I really felt with COVID-19 in the air, and the lack of being able to do proper funerals today and visitations and things, I didn't go. I really feel like there was a lack of closure, and I spoke to some of my friends here about that, and many of them reflected the same thing, that there just seemed to be some lack of closure. So I was thinking around, and one thing went through my mind was to have like a bonfire and I invite people over. But of course, we do have the COVID thing, and anytime we are getting together, according to where everybody's at on the scale of how they're dealing with the pandemic, instantly somebody would be left out. And Christopher mentioned something about doing it podcast wise or Zoom wise, and I thought that'd be a great idea, and it'd be a great way to do it, and then also turn it into a podcast and a tribute to that man, to Jesse. So we've gotten together tonight to share some memories of him. I know that everybody has. I can look around at the faces on the screen, and I know that everybody has specific memories and have particular connections and what they what in their journey of bumping into Jesse. Some very, very connected and one reason why I say that is what I was saying is when I looked at Darren, I thought of that because you guys know that the music that's wrapped around the Spiritual Underground podcast is Darren's music. And it was Jesse who produced that music and played some of the instruments and stuff and did some of that in it too. I think he played some instruments, didn't he, Darren? Yeah, I thought that was the case. I didn't know it for sure. So every time you hear this podcast, there's a piece of Jesse Simpson in there, a piece of Darren Frank and a piece of Jesse Simpson. And man, it hits me every time. That kite up there behind me, yeah. Jesse brought back and gave it to me for a gift when he brought it back from China. It was coming in that big fancy Oriental style box, all folded up, and it's wooden frame on it, and paper. That has been hand painted. I mean, it's a piece of art, and it's been hanging in my house ever since he gave it to me. The night I brought it home from a meeting, I hung it on the ceiling, and I knew it would never see air because it's way too delicate feeling to even begin to stick it out and fly it for real. So this is just a way that, one way Jesse touched me there, by allowing me to receive a gift of his love. So we'll share some things tonight, just go around the room. First half of it, what I like to do is just share like our memories and what's going on, from recollections and things like that. And then we'll kind of have a halftime and we'll turn the corner. And I also want to, on the second half, talk about the deadliness of this disease and anything you want to put in there, because I think that's, when especially when our fellows end up losing the battle to this disease, it is very important that we all remember and we all pass along the message of that, that's what happens to us. That was what would happen to me. That is what happens to us when we stray away from the 12 steps in the remission of our disease. So really thank you, the listeners. Thanks everybody. I hope it can be a little dark, but that's not really what I'm wanting, because I think we get to my feelings on death today. I used to have a lot of problems with death, and my feelings on death today are a lot different than they were before I came into here. I used to have really bad nightmares as a kid thinking about death. Spent most of my life worrying that my mom was going to die any minute, and but today I feel like it's more like an escape to whatever's next. It's a little bit like a game, a world in a game where you check out of this and none of us know what's going to be on the other side. And I'm personally think I'm not excited enough to get there in any hurry, but I think those people who have passed on have went to whatever the next piece of their journey is. So I don't look at it as such a dark thing, except for those who are left behind and miss our loved ones. So I'll go ahead and we'll use the same tools we do in Zoom all the time, and we will raise our hands and get it going. I know it's usually a little bit funny. It takes a minute I always say to get my vocal cords lubricated so I can get to talking. But I also look around this room and see a lot of dudes who's I've seen their vocal cords greasy with lubrication in the past. So there shouldn't be any lack of something to say. Who would like to go first? If Shane shares, me and him just going to trade seats. Hope I don't have to cut out too much dead air time.
I'll go.
We'll trade.
All right. So Shane Gibson, alcoholic addict. I know it's not a meeting, but I always like to identify as one to help others know that there is a solution. When I came into Spiritual Underground, Jesse was one of the first guys I'd met after Dan, and he just had this look in his eye, man, and this smile, and I remember him telling me that he always loved my hugs, and I gave the best hugs. And this has been rough for me, to be honest. I haven't really talked about it too much, but I didn't get to go to his funeral because of COVID. I had COVID, and I was really distraught about it. But when Dan said he was going to do this podcast, I just, I was like, man, yeah, I want to be there. I was like, would you mind if I even came to your house to be there? That eagle behind us right there reminds me of Jesse. I didn't even know Jesse gave that to him, but it reminds me of his eagle tattoo he had on his chest. So Jesse came in and out of Spiritual Underground about 4 times since I've been sober. And the first time he went out, I was very early in recovery, and he was about 6 months sober, and it scared the shit out of me. And I was like, this guy was 6 months sober, and he looked like he had it all. And now he's, drinking again. Is this not going to work for me? And, he would come in and out about every 6 months, it seemed like. And every time he came in, until this last time, I always had the feeling that he would go back out until this last time.
Yeah.
This last time he had a different spirit about him with the program. And I thought he had it. And I don't want to blame it on COVID or anything like that, but it's a lot different today to be able to stay sober than it was before COVID. In my opinion, I don't know if I got sober during COVID. I needed this connection with these people like I had with Jesse. When Jesse was out in the madness, I would still text him every day. And one time I got a phone call from his phone, and I thought it was him, and it wasn't. He had left his coat at a bar, and his phone was in it. And somebody had found it, and they called me because I had texted him, and I told him how to get a hold of him, and they finally got it back to him, and he called me and thanked me, and I said, when are you coming back? And he said, eventually, I'm not done yet. So he ended up coming back again, and out again. And I got to really know Jesse during the Misery's Optional Players. I learned so much about that dude. He's an amazing musician, awesome singer. And to see him perform on stage with his dad, that brought tears to my eyes, to be honest. I was emceeing that, and that brought tears to my eyes watching that. So, this last time he came in, he called me right before he came in, and we were talking, and he asked me, if I would come to a meeting with him. I said, hell yeah. Meet me at the Fourth Dimension on Sunday. And because he wanted to get sober before he turned 40. And so I met him there, and I got a picture of me and him sitting in the meeting. And I flashed it all over our group me. Jesse's back. I was so excited. And he took off this time, man. He really went at it. And I was super proud of him. And I could see the changes in him. And, he had that spiritual retreat down at his cabin. And me, Travis, and Dan were there. Nobody else that's in here was there. But we had an awesome time down there. And he was like, man, this is what I wanted at this place. I want to do this again, and the people next door have a retreat too. Maybe we could combine the meetings. And, it was just, I don't know, man. He had a different zest about him this time, and I thought he had it. But that's how this disease is. It swept back in and took him from us. I don't know, man. I just really miss him. I miss him a lot. I think that's all I got to say right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Shane.
Thanks, Shane.
Everybody will get a couple chances if we need to, because I know as we talk here, it's going to probe new memories and remembering things. I did today. I went down to meet Mark Bishop for a little meet and greet, pass on the chips because he's taking over that chipmunk position. And on the way down there, it hit me, and I listened to Jesse's podcast this morning. Nice. And he told the story about the phone, and I think wasn't that on real close to this last time in, I
Yeah,
believe.
it was.
Yeah, that's there was always some funny connection that Jesse would have as he continued to weave in and out. Who wants to go next?
I'll go.
Frank?
Yeah, before I start talking about Jesse, just really quick, I agree that it's a real hardship to for people, and I feel for people who are trying to get sober at the beginning of Zoom. I mean, the beginning of COVID. It's got to be really hard and really difficult. But it's living proof people can do it, and I've learned something about Zoom that's relevant about Zoom and about this is relevant to me. Is one thing I've learned is that the limitations we place on time and space in our minds is not representative of what really is. We really are connected, without the limitations that we think we have, and I also, for me, this is me personally, death is going to come up in this conversation. And I believe that just like we're connected, despite the fact that we're sitting in different places, we're also connected when people pass away. I don't see our energy flows around everywhere. I don't see a distinction there, So I do feel like he's here, and I feel like he's here tonight.
Good point.
He loved us, we were very, very important to him, and just a couple of things and memories I have and thoughts I had about him. And I remember first meeting him, and what I remember liking about him was how approachable he was. I mean, especially the first couple of years when I first met him. At that time in life, I was suffering from a lot of social anxiety, and he was just the one guy, man, you could walk up to and feel totally comfortable, totally like, no judgment. I didn't perceive any judgment at all, and I don't think that he did. And another thing I loved about him was, they talk about his job, and like, so here he is, he's being defeated by, going back out, and like he's battling the ego, kicking himself and all that, and like anybody knew, in this program, when we come in, our egos are killing us, and so we beat ourselves up, and we also brag a lot, and I was just amazed that despite the fact that, his ego was hurt really bad, he didn't like make a show of how much money he made and what kind of education he had and that kind of shit. He was very humble about it. And to me, that was really profound. And quite honestly, I don't know that I could have done that at the very beginning if I had that situation. And memory wise, I have two. I want to say another quality that I remember about him that you don't hear is I felt like he was really good at knowing when to say something. Like he had an awareness that maybe he didn't even know himself about what's happening with somebody else, just by the kind of statements he made, and I saw it the first time I really started to connect with him was when he was in China, and he talked about needing to contact people. So I started, shooting texts to him a lot, and he appreciated it. So we were texting back and forth. We had a pretty long thread going, and he was bitching about a lot of different things, and and that quality of him, it's funny because he was bitching, and the one time I remember him reaching out to me, "Hey Frank, how's it going?" Like out of the blue, instead of me saying, "How are you?" and all that. And it was a day I was fucking at the end of my ropes with my wife having cancer and going through chemo and shit. So I unleashed on him, man. And it was like he knew. Somehow or another, I don't know that he knew, but it felt like he knew. And I remember him from the retreat and a lot of other different things. The thing that really sticks in my mind towards the beginning of COVID, and around his birthday and all of that timing. Some of our last meetings, I don't know, February sometime. He started asking me questions about cameras because he wanted to get a camera. So we started talking again because he called me. He had this issue, this thing he saw, that and this and whatever. And so I made recommendations, and eventually he got a camera. And the next thing you know, it's like, I sure could use some lessons. So, and I remember thinking, yeah, man, I'd love to do that, and stuff. And again, it's like, I don't want to make this about me. I feel like I'm maybe doing that, but it's like the way he kind of knew somehow, I don't know. It's like, I felt like he knew, he wasn't even aware of it, but like his statements were really coming in at the exactly correct time. He had a knack for that. At least with me, he did. And, so, I had been struggling with this, like, photography was a passion of mine. I tend to drop things, and I dropped this photography and I couldn't get back into it, and I was trying to find some creative out thing. And he's like, I tell you what, about that time when I'm messing around with this in my head, tossing it around, he comes up and he says, hey, I got an idea. Why don't you teach me photography and I'll teach you how to play the guitar?
Cool.
And that's really like, I'm glad that's my last memory of him, really, because I love that memory.
Yeah.
It defined who he was to me. So I think I'll shut up at this point. Let somebody else go.
Thanks, Frank. I'm having a little problem. I pinned Shane there for a minute, and then I forgot to unpin him. And then I noticed that now he's up and I'm talking. And now it's not one to follow the voice very well. I can force that, though. No big deal. Christopher. You all right?
Hey guys, Christopher Cohn, alcoholic and addict. If it's any help, Dan, when you're talking just now, the yellow box was around you, which usually indicates that's the one being filmed. So
yeah,
might not be coming up on your screen, right? But I did want to throw this in at first in case we forget to mention this. The saga of Jesse trying to adopt a dog in China. Not just the language barrier, but you got to understand they have very draconian rules about, he would always warn me and tell me when he went over there, you have to be very careful what you take pictures of because the cops will be on you in a second because everything's being filmed everywhere you go. And they don't, they're suspicious of everybody. So why do you want this dog and for what purpose? And what I didn't want to get missed in the mix is the reason why he was adopting this dog. He was saving it from food.
Yeah.
The dog was going to be eaten. He saw this raggedy ass beat up mutt and he started asking about it because it always seemed to be around and was very friendly to him. And they said, oh yeah, they're probably going to butcher him up soon and eat him because he was in one of the most rural places in China. They have no other option for food. And so he did his good deed and spared the dog from the table. Jesse had the biggest heart, I sort of got from the beginning. So I'll be concise about this. So I had the pleasure of meeting Jesse in treatment. He came into my group in outpatient it seems like eons ago, summer. And he was very refreshing as a patient because he had a keen wit, very incisive. You're right, Frank. He was one of the most astutely observant people I've ever met. He could always feel and observe things that other people would miss. But he was refreshingly he didn't battle back on any of his truths. He had his fair share of delusion and denial, just like any patient does. But it was kind of like, I'd say, well, you're a drunk. And he'd be like, well, duh. He just sort of was very open and accepting about it and would tell his stories freely. And that was always a pleasure because most times with therapy, you have to dig hard against the alcoholic wall. And almost from the beginning, I felt this urge that I wanted to sponsor him. He was like the all-American kid to me, not the picture of what you would think of for addiction, but that's true of all of us. If you look back on our pictures, we don't look like the picture of what you think an alcoholic addict should be. He had everything going for him. Great marriage, great job, great money, good looking, played music, just had it all going for him. And, with the rules of ethics and everything, I'm not able to sponsor him unless there's a certain amount of time gone by and extenuating circumstances. So he did come to my first home group, which was the Broad Highway group, and was with us through all that journey. Darren knows a lot about that, and he'll probably share on some of that. And then he joined us at Spiritual Underground right after that. And on one of his last trips out in the madness, he got beaten down so bad. And he had done the steps so many times out of the big book, and it clearly wasn't working, that I made the suggestion that please, let's try the TSSR book. Let's just try to do what we can to give you a fresh perspective on this, because nothing disheartens me more than people who are trying and going through the process the way it's spelled out, but they've lost the zeal and they've lost the newness of it, because they know they've done a bazillion 4 steps. They've done all that. And it's still not some missing piece. There's a missing piece there. And so he went on a deeper dive with me, and we would spend those nights after the Spiritual Underground group, after it closed at 9, and we'd be in the parking lot till midnight, just talking. And he was always willing to go on cosmic journeys to discuss heavier questions about God and why we're here and sobriety and how these shit works and why are we going through all this and all that stuff. And the one thing I want to say on a very high positive note for Jesse, he had one of the most fabulous senses of humor I've ever encountered. And it was a kindred humor to mine, because he had a fondness for the random. The random was very amusing to him, and he would see things that a lot of people might miss. And so I asked him, I said, well, when you go to China, take pictures and send them to me, man, because I guarantee there's random shit going on over there in that communist country. And he's a couple of pictures he sent me. One was in his hotel, and he's leaning into the mirror, and he's got a selfie going, and he's got the smallest tube of toothpaste you've ever seen in your life. I swear to God, it must be a single serving, because, economy and trying to be very, minimizing in China. And he's trying to get this little itty bitty toothpaste thing out of his toothbrush. And another one he sent me was a poster for 911, but apparently in China it's 119. And he's sitting there going, he did that to me again remember when he had that sobriety device on his car and he couldn't start it unless you blow into the tube, and he had to blow a certain tone. We would spend hours talking about, as a musician, trying to figure out what note it was, what the frequency was, but it was like this, and he would imitate it for me about, if you didn't get it right, it would buzz at you and squawk at you and think you're trying to fake it. So, but he's in his car in one of the pictures, and this is after he had the device taken off, and he's like, how do I start this thing? Because the only way you could start it before was blowing in the tube. So God bless him. Just a wonderful, wonderful man. I had the great honor, like I said, of getting to sponsor him, and he had it. He was doing it. Everything was going right until the madness comes back. And suddenly we walk away from our friends. And the minute we see people walk away, every man in this group will tell you, it's never good. So I really appreciate you putting this together tonight, Dan. I too felt no closure yet. I didn't get the chance to go to the funeral because of COVID, and didn't seem real, and it didn't seem like enough. So he really touched me, and I know he touched the lives of everybody in this room, and I feel tears coming on right now just saying this, but he's a dear man, and he didn't deserve to die from this illness.
Thanks, Christopher.
And I just wanted to know how much we care about him, because I know there's so many people we go to funerals and they just don't know how much they're loved when they take their own lives or they end up dead from this disease through other circumstances. And at every funeral I've ever gone to, all you're hearing is about everybody saying how much they meant to him. And apparently that alcoholic wall could not let those feelings in and did not know how much he was valued and how much worth he had in other people's lives. So again, thank you. I'll shut up for now. I'm sure I'll have more to say later, but God bless you, Jesse. We love you, man.
Yeah, thanks, Christopher.
Thanks, Christopher.
Thanks, Chris.
Oh. Travis, you have the floor next, brother.
Hey, what's up, guys? Travis, alcoholic. Man, I miss that guy. God, thanks, Christopher. That was heavy. So I met Jesse through email. I don't know Jesse as a guy who came in and out all the time like everybody else in here. I only met him about 15, 16 months ago. I was about 7 weeks sober. And I didn't know if I was going to do this thing or not, man. I didn't know. I wasn't sure. I had played around a little bit with it before, but Jesse gave me something that I didn't have, and that was hope. And about 7 weeks sober, he sent me an email from China. I don't know how he got my fucking email address. He sent me an email and invited me down to his house at Rough River. And that was a time where I'd spend about a year trying to get sober, and I couldn't get more than about 6 or 7 or 8 weeks sober, and then I'd go back. And And that was at about that mark, you know, that was about that 6 or 7, 8 week mark for me when he sent me that email and invited me to come down to his house there for that Neverglades trip that we had. And I don't know, man. You know, Jesse's a big part of my foundation. It hit me fucking hard. It hit me really hard. I think he's the first person, you know, I'm only 17 months sober, but he's the first person that I've had a connection with in recovery that I've lost. And it hit me hard, man. It hit me really hard. You know, a lot of emotions. Just really sad. He was just such an inspiration to me. I really looked up to him. Like I said, I didn't know him as a guy that was sober and not sober and came out. I didn't know him like you guys knew him like that. I just knew him as a, you know, I think he was 9 or 10 months sober when he invited me to go down there. And I really looked up to him. You know, we had a really good relationship. We talked on the phone a lot. He always inspired me, always encouraged me. You know, I always remember at his birthday celebration, you know, how he said it took him 8 years to get a year sober. And that he always just kept coming back, man. I think, you know, we all know the consequences of what happens. But I love him to death, man. I talked to him maybe about a month before this happened, and just told him how much we missed him and told him I loved him, and I'm glad I got to say that to him, man. That's all I really wanted to say.
Thanks, Travis.
Thanks, Travis.
Thanks, Travis.
I can feel this really helping me just doing this already.
Yeah, me too.
Marshall, you have your hand up next, and then Ross has got after that.
Hey everybody, Marshall Alcoholic.
Hey,
Hey,
Marshall.
I just looked up, that was episode 112 of the podcast that Jesse was, and which is only like maybe the 9th or 10th guy or something like that, maybe. But that was, for me, that's how I found out about you guys, was this podcast. And there was something still rock star about all of y'all, you know, still is about y'all. But at that time, it was there were still sparkles on everybody. You know, I mean, I was listening to you guys through the radio. He was one of them. But you know, I listened to all those. And the first time I saw Jesse, though, that I know that I saw him and met him was when we were at the TSSR. Or I mean, not the TSSR. We were at Spurt. Sorry, we were at Spurt, and Ross and I were walking back to a tent, and we heard what we thought was a radio playing from a tent. I was like, man, it's like playing a radio over there or something. But Ross went over, and Ross is Ross. Ross stuck his head in there. What's going on? And he said, oh man, you're just playing a guitar? You're pretty good. He says, hey, can you teach me to play like that? I was like, man, that's pretty crazy right off the bat. There's no out of nowhere. But it was awesome. I truly thought somebody was playing a radio in there. He was that good. I was like, holy smokes, it was fantastic. But then I got to know him, you know, coming, you know, at the meetings and everything. And he was just witty and intelligent and friendly. That smile from ear to ear, you know. He's funny, you know, on on our group meets and chats and stuff. He was always coming off with the funniest stuff. And of course, his videos. Easy now. Easy.
Yeah.
Loved it, man. And I see him doing that now. I can see him doing it right now. Him being, that's what it is. That's what will stay with me forever. Is those images of him doing that right there. Just easy, bro. You know, he's got that California vibe, Hawaiian vibe, because he would send us videos from Hawaii where he was out there, you know, surfing. You know, he's surfing. I'm doing it, man. And it was like, you know, he was doing what we were supposed to be doing. We were going full blast with this, more, you know. And that's what I love about this group and all y'all. And we give it all we got, and we go for everything more that we haven't got. And he was just right there. We went out to eat at some place, at some Vietnamese place. I was coming out of my comfort zone in culinary arts. He took me to a Vietnamese place and ate. I just learned. I was about to say pho. I just said it now. I'll tell on myself. I was going to say pho, but my sponsor corrected me. He said it's pho, pho. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right. Well, anyways, it's pho. It's this something that I've never ate before. This Vietnamese cuisine. But Jesse turned me on to it, and then since then I've been going out and eating Korean bulgogi. I've eaten Thai. I've eaten Ethiopian food and stuff. And this is all coming from this little country guy that hasn't hardly been out of Kentucky. And but I've stretched out, and that he's a little part of that, you know. And I mean, a lot of people are, but that's just another one of the things that I'll always remember. You know, went and ate. It was just me and Jesse. We had a long talk. We were late to the Spiritual Underground because we were talking so much. And after he stopped coming in for a while, I was like, where's he at? What's going on? And I added him to a little list that I send out of messages every morning. It's just a small list of people. And I was adding him into it. It's just the daily readings. And I added him to it. And nobody had actually told me that he had went back out. And I guess, and I feel kind of bad because I didn't do more about even asking or finding out that that was so. And I didn't know for a while until I kept sending those messages for about a month or so. And then one time he responded back and just said, "Hey man, take me off your list." And I was like, "Oh, dude, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to overstep my bounds or anything. Like, I just hadn't heard from you and I hadn't seen you and I was worried about you." And he said, "Dude, I'm cool. I'm good." And I was like, "Are you?" You know? And he's like, "Yeah, man, I'm good." I was like, "Okay, great. I'm glad." I said, "I hope to see you around." And he said, "Yeah, man, you will." That's that I
Hello.
that's the last I talked to him.
Sure, I understand.
Somebody
my
here
phone.
was coming into had got reacted.
I don't know what happened. Sorry about that.
I said something that sounded like "Hey Siri," and I got to be careful saying that too because mine will come on too.
Yes. Sorry about that.
No big deal, man. As I say a million times, this is not a stereo podcast. If you haven't heard the compressor kick on or the coon dogs or something going on in one of the podcasts, the acorns hitting the roof and all that.
But that was it. And that's the last I had. That's the last I personally kind of connected with him at all. And then when I found out when I heard that he had passed or he had had an accident, it was just my Mark Bish told me that I needed to check on the group me, and I did. And that's when I found out. I was walking down my driveway and I just stopped and my stomach just dropped to the floor, and then came back up to my throat and then didn't go away for probably 3 or 4 hours. And I just and now thinking about it makes it hard to swallow. I get this visceral reaction. It's kind of like Travis there. It's the first real loss that I know of from this, and coming back and being serious and all about the recovery. And anyway, that's all I got.
Thanks, Marshall.
Thanks, Marshall.
Thanks, Marshall. Thanks, Marshall.
Yeah, that I heard. I was sitting out in the wood shop and Chase called me and asked me if I heard about Jesse. And had no idea what he was talking about. It sure knocked me off my tracks for the rest of that evening. A couple of people had called me and sponsees calling people, and I just couldn't even focus on what they were telling me. It rocked me. Ross, you are up next.
Hey, I'm Ross. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Ross.
Wow, this is really, really great. Thanks. So I knew Jesse for a little bit of time, and I was listening to you guys speak about him, the ones that have known him so much more than I knew him. It feels it's hitting. And you guys that have known him a lot longer, I feel for you guys because I knew him a short amount of time, and he had he had an amazing impact on my journey because I met Jesse at when my eyes were open. I'd probably seen him in a meeting or two before that, but I met him on the time that he was doing well, and he was in. We met at a Don M meeting, and he always had he had like 2 months more than me, and he would always push me to keep going, and so he was like my rider that I had to keep going and keep moving through the steps. And every time we'd see each other, he would say like, "All right, man, you still doing it? How many days are you? What step are you on?" And then we'd talk about it, and we go back and forth. And I never even knew that he was so like. I never even knew he was an engineer, like so brilliant. I just knew that he was just cool, man. And it just went to like, he never judged me, and it made me feel like I was just okay. And we got to talk a lot, and I used to love watching him talk to my other friend Kevin, and they just start laughing, and then I would just walk up and just start laughing with him. And it was always exciting for me because I always wanted to like race to beat somebody in the steps back then. And and he was like my little car racer. So he helped me keep going, and then he even gave me more push when he went to China and stayed sober in China. And I'm like, dude, if that dude can stay sober in China, I can fucking do it. And I would always look at the posts on the group me's, and then I miss him, and it started something for me that I don't want to miss anybody anymore. I don't want to miss saying something, saying hello to somebody when they come through my mind. I don't want to miss that opportunity anymore. So, and he came through my mind quite a bit, and I didn't reach out in the last few months that he was here, and it's taught me not to hold back on people. And I had an opportunity of going to his online funeral, and I'd known that he was at that point. I knew that he was like on the podcast, and he was an amazing artist, and he was super intelligent, and everyone loved him, and he just had like really great hugs, and it was always like a warm hug I'd get from him. And and this is the first person that I was ever close to that passed away. So it really hit me. Like when I heard the news, I think I saw it on Google, and then I saw it on the podcast. And then I had sat down, and I was like, and then I got some couple texts and some phone calls, and then I sat down, and it kind of, I was like, whoa. And it was rough. And I actually called Darren and talked about it with him for a while, because it was like it hit really close to home to me. It was the first person. But I had the pleasure of going to watching his funeral on YouTube, and I got to know a lot more about how people, like Chris said, they loved him, and a lot more information about Jesse, and like where he wanted. And I heard that what he wanted to do. He loved fishing, and I heard that heard a lot of people that when they grew up with him, his childhood friends were at his funeral, and all of his coworkers were there, and his family, and just all this love they were pouring on him, and he was so loved. He way more of it, even us, we loved him, but he was so loved everywhere. It's just actually I wrote a poem about Jesse. I changed a couple of words yesterday, and I just like to share it. I wrote it on the week after he died. It came to me about Jesse. I wrote it on November 7th, 2020, and I like to share it. It's called Lightning Crashes. It's here today, gone tomorrow. Where do we really go? Why is that question confusing? Why does everyone need to know? Is there a heaven or a hell? Some days it's really hard to tell. Lightning crashed for our brother Jesse. it seemed like things were well, and they took a turn. It's really possible it can happen to you or me. Our disease won again just a week ago last Saturday. I'm writing this because there are so many wonderful things I like to say. First, we love you, brother, and we know you are here. So proud we could celebrate all together when you received your 1 year. Always brought a smile wherever you went. Your hugs so loving, you could tell they were angel sent. Your passion for music was one of a kind, electrifying and genius, just like your mind. A poet, a friend, a son, and a brother. We miss you, Jesse. There will never be another. We know you are with us, flying around. Many times lately, I can hear you when I can't even hear a sound. You are an old soul, and it's just what the world needs. Sometimes journeys ends, and it cuts hearts, and they bleed. We know you are on the ocean, living your dreams. Fishing was your peace, so it seems. If there's a sentence or a word I could say just for today, it would be, we love you, Jesse, and stay. We love you, Jesse, and we will always be with you. Here today, gone tomorrow. We will all see you again. We know that's true. So that was special for me because I love you, Jesse, and I would have wished I got to know you more. And thank you. Thank you, Jesse.
Thanks, Ross.
Thanks, guys.
That's
That
really
was
great.
beautiful, Ross.
Beautiful, Ross. Thank you, man.
Beautiful. You know, when he had that retreat down to Rough River, he's initially trying to hit it right about my 50th birthday, and he called me about that, and it wasn't going to work out to have it that close, so it ended up being a month after, and I really didn't put it together. And we were sitting around there talking, and if I'm not mistaken, every single person that was at that, I think there was 12 or so of us, I think. Every one of them was either a sponsor of mine or a grand sponsee, or a sponsee of mine or a grand sponsee. The only difference was Shane, and he's a sponsee brother.
Yeah.
We share sponsors, and he had told me that he had arranged that thing on purpose like that. And it's just another one of the ways that he touched me, and it's just very humbling, and again, just reflective of the heart that the dude had. Darren, you have your hand up, brother.
Darren alcoholic.
Hey, Darren.
So about 7 years ago, I bought this guitar. I'd had a decent guitar before I got sober, back in the madness, I sold it. So I wanted to buy a nice guitar, but, I made a deal with myself. If I was going to spend this kind of money, I needed to start playing it. So I started playing quite a bit. And I had this feeling that I was supposed to write. And so I tried to write a book, and that didn't work so well. And then I started writing songs, and man, I just caught fire. I mean, I wrote like 50 songs in like 6 months or something like that. And I spent a year working on my voice to get it to where I could stand listening to myself. And so when I got everything together, the next step in this, because I had this dream since I was, 19 years old. And I didn't want to be a star or nothing. I just wanted to write songs and record them. So I was talking to Jesse. I knew he played music, and I said, this is where I'm at right now. And my next step is recording. I just don't have the money for it. And he said, who needs money? I got a recording studio in my basement. So I had to needle him a little bit and nudge him here and there, because it was hard to get him to commit to anything. But finally he did, and we had a girl in our home group, the Broad Highway. That's where I met Jesse, and she played the drums. So we all got together, and the first night, man, we were talking about how to record and how long it was going to take. I thought it was going to take, 30 days, and he's talking about a year and a half. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to take that long, but it took a little bit longer than that. But we're talking about how back in the old, in the 70s and the 60s, how they recorded was live. They would all play together. And he said, it would capture the chi. And as soon as he said that, I knew that we were going to do something cool. So we did. We mic'd up his little studio, which is a very small room. Yeah, I think it was like 8 by 8, and he had all these instruments in there. And so we recorded like 5 songs, I think. And initially, I think it took us about 6 weeks to do all that. And then we had, that was just me playing guitar, him playing the bass, and her playing the drums. And then that was really all we had to do together. And so then it was just me and Jesse adding stuff. Well, he added all this stuff to it. I mean, I brought these songs to life. I wrote them, I gave them the heart, but Jesse gave them the soul. Um, he did everything that you hear on the record. The only things he didn't do was acoustic guitar, which is me, a djembe drum, which was my friend Lauren, and harmonica, which was his dad. Everything else he did with his guitar and sound effects and pedals and stuff like that. And I don't know how many hours, countless hours he had to put into that over a year and a half time. Well, actually, it's probably closer to 2 years when he got them and he mastered them, and everything to do was super talented. But the coolest part was, after the first few months, it was just me and him. So every Wednesday I would get to go over there and spend time with him. And that's when it's different. The Jesse that we knew in meetings was not the real Jesse. The real Jesse, the free spirit, was in that studio. He loved that studio and he loved to play. And it was just the energy was completely different about him. And he was the one building me up because I was inexperienced and I didn't like my voice. I didn't like the way I played. I just knew I had some good songs and put some cool words down and some cool melodies down, but I didn't know how to do anything with it. And he was the one that was encouraging me. He made me into the singer-songwriter that I am today, just by his encouragement. And he was the same way that I was. He didn't like his voice. I love his voice. And we also got to do that Misery is Optional show together that Shane was talking about. And that was a blast. I got to play with him and his dad. And funny story, when he went out to do his song, he took that little device that he had to blow into when he started his car, when he had that ticket, and he went through the whole process and the audience was just dying. And he went through the whole process of the sound it makes and how long he had to wait in between the beats and stuff. And that's how he started his song. So that was really cool. It was really cool to see him play with his dad. I'd seen him, I think my 3rd year sober. I'd seen him and his dad play. Jesse and Brian Beck from our home group, they were playing in the show. And I went to it with Christopher and my wife and a bunch of other guys. And that's kind of what inspired me to start playing. So that was the Jesse that I knew. And he was an inspiration to me. And I never got that close to him. Never really opened up to me that much. But, just talking to him, I could see, he just couldn't see how special he was. Everybody else could. And he could see it in them, but he could not see it in himself. And one of my favorite authors, Wayne Dyer, Dr. Wayne Dyer, he had a saying, "Don't die with your music inside." And Jesse did. He had a lot more, and he could have did a lot more. He could have gave a lot more, and that's what makes me sad. Is he has so much more to offer to his friends and his family, and through his music, and especially his wife. and his parents, um, and his nephew. He loved his nephew. They had a connection through baseball. Jesse was a baseball player. I didn't know that. He played in an adult baseball league. That's something I found out about him that I didn't know. He loved to fish. He loved the outdoors. He loved to go to the lake. He loved the water. Loved to go to Florida. He's got several albums that he made with different bands. He's had songs played on local radio stations. He got our songs played on local radio stations. He got one of my songs put on an album. I've never heard the album, but it was a local album. They did local musicians, and I sent one in. So somewhere I've got a record. A song on a record, and that was all Jesse. Man, he was, and I just can't tell you the constant hours that he put in. Never asked me for a dime. He did all that from the kindness of his heart, and that's just who he was.
Right.
Thank you. That's all I got for now.
Thanks, Darren. Yeah, that's very indicative of
Thanks, Darren.
Jesse that I knew. When I was doing this podcast, I knew I was going to need some music, and most time you have to pay for that stuff, and it's one of the reasons why I know Higher Power has been supporting this podcast, because he put musicians in my midst, and I'm not, I've got some awesome recovery related music to wrap around that. When Jesse came in and did his podcast, well, first off, I put out a little call. I needed a guest, and now and again I'm trying to put out weekly content, and I needed a guest, and I throwed it out there, and he contacted me, but he put the preface on it. He said, but I don't have enough sobriety, and he'd like been 60 days or something. But it's that deal about the recovery you add up is not necessarily in direct correlation with the days you've been sober. You've been hanging around in here and doing this stuff, that what you're learning in the way of life sticks with you. You have to reset your sobriety clock once in a while. And it just hit me. I was like, man, you come. And so he did. And, but I remember like a couple hours before he was coming, I said, bring a guitar. He's like, really? I said, yeah. So I got to sit there, and he sat on the other side of the podcast table from me and played music. And anytime I've been around guys that do that, when I've been around Darren doing it, I got a picture of Jesse down at one of the retreats, sitting in one of those recliners playing the guitar, and sound like somebody, like Ross said, sound like there was a radio going on inside the cabin. It's one of the ways I get those Kundalini tickles, when I get to sit in front of somebody, especially somebody that I know and is dear to me and is making that music and making that come out. It just gives me these tingles that, man, just don't stop, just play. Don't stop, just play. And in his podcast, I used that music around that particular episode. I like that I time on the end of this podcast, as the song leads in, that Let Go and Fly, I time my peace out at the end, which is I took from my sponsor, Christopher, peace out. I timed that right with Gino's harmonica blasting, so that when I'm saying peace out, the harmonica shoots way up into volume, and just perfect timing. Floor's open for anybody. So I've been making notes of things as you all talk. I was prodding memories for me, and I'm sitting here with a piece of paper and jotting down a few things. But I think everybody's been around once, haven't it? Yeah, I think everybody has been around once. You want to go again, Shane?
All right, guys. Shane Gibson, alcoholic again. Yeah. First off, I just want to say thank you to Dan for putting on this tribute. It's already helped me so much, and thanks to all the guys that have shared their pain and their story about Jesse, because it's really helped me. I don't even know if you could tell by my face, but I could see a difference in my face looking in the camera about how I feel now versus when I first got in here tonight. I want to show you a picture, if I can get it on there.
Look up there.
Okay, there we go. Was going through my phone, and I came across the day you came back into my life. Love you, brother. And he texted me back, I love you too, man. That picture, man, I love that picture of me and him. He had given me a one day at Spiritual Honor, and he came in and he gave me this wood painting that a friend of his had painted, and he bought it from him. He said, man, as soon as I saw that painting, I knew it was for you. And there's a painting of elk. He said it was a deer. It was actually a painting of an elk. And one of my last texts to him was, I'm going to Colorado to go elk hunting. And that picture that you gave me, I've been meditating with it. And I think I'm going to get a 7x7 bull. I did not get that bull, but it was just cool that, he thought it was a deer. And when I was meditating, I would just see him and I would think about him. One other thing was, thank you, Marshall, for saying the surfing thing, because it reminded me that a couple of days after his death, I had a dream about him, and he was surfing through the universe, and he was doing his, like he always did, man. And it was just cool to see him smiling, just surfing the universe, just paving the way for us when we get there, checking it out for us. When he came back in this last time, he was needing help finding a sponsor, and I'll back up just a little bit. So when he was out in the madness, he had just came back in, and then he got on the group me and texted a picture of my sponsor Amir and said, "This is my friend who is in a lot of trouble." And that following Thursday, I saw Amir at the meeting, and I got an instant God shot. Like, I need to help Jesse's friend. I wanted to help save Jesse's friend. And I started sponsoring Amir, and they were friends out in the madness. But I probably wouldn't have sponsored Amir if it wasn't for Jesse. And Amir's changed me a lot through my life. So I'm grateful for him for that. Going back to the sponsorship thing, he was looking for a sponsor, and me and Christopher, I think maybe Dan, were praying on it. And one day I talked to him. I said, "Man, we've been praying about it, and we think we found somebody for you." He said, "Is it you?" I said, "No, actually, it wasn't." I said, "We think it's going to be Drew." He's like, "Drew?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay," and he took our suggestion and went with Drew, man, and he just took off.
He got a lot of traction with Drew.
Yeah,
He really did.
He got a lot of traction with Drew. Drew really helped him out a lot, and they didn't know how connected they really were as far as a lot of the commonalities about themselves and their likes, and they just clicked, man. It was awesome to watch them grow together. But like I said, I just want to thank you all for being here tonight and helping me lift this heavy weight that's been on me by showing me that it's been on you all too. And y'all have helped lift that today. So I thank all y'all. Love y'all.
Thanks, Shane.
Love you, Shane.
Thanks, Shane.
So we can go around again if anything's spurred or whatever. And we're about an hour and 15 in. I scheduled 2. We'll see what happens. But anybody else? Ross, you got something to go again?
Thanks, Dan. Hey, I'm Ross. I'm an alcoholic. I just wanted to say that I've seen your background so many times, Dan, while you're doing your podcast here, so many times. This is the first time ever that kite behind you, that when you switch seats and you said his name, the kite moved, the eagle moved. It's the first time when we rewatch the video, you'll see what I'm saying. It's the first time that the kite has moved around ever. So he's here.
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
Thank you.
I saw that
Thanks.
tonight, and I thought, man, I'm going to stick a hook in the ceiling and move that thing tonight. That teddy bear back there, I've got a picture of Darren and Jesse with that teddy bear. And then Jesse started, when he was going to China, he took that teddy bear with him and started sharing pictures of him in China in these business meetings with his teddy bear. He joined right in on that kind of stuff. They're probably, it's funny to say this, but I just will go ahead. I probably have never been happier to see a guy get a 1-year chip than Jesse.
Yeah.
There was nobody ever that hit me as hard and as that I was that excited for.
Yeah.
I remember a whole bunch of us that time, and I might be wrong here, but I believe it was the first time he was asked to speak a while back. And there was like 10 or 15 of us joined up and went over there to support him. when he spoke that night, and every time you hear somebody say this on the podcast all the time, every time I do this, I get to know people better, and and even going and listening to hearing Jesse tell his story that night, and that was after he had been on the podcast, but I still learned things about him that I didn't know. Um, it was just always like, it's so close to me. Christopher sponsored him for a while. So, you feel that bond when you have the same sponsor, and you call each other and bitch about your sponsor. And, and then when Drew picked him up, Drew's a sponsee of mine, so now Jesse's, in direct lineage again, and he's getting a lot of traction with Drew. And I'd never really would have lined those two things up. Yeah. And I just kept on reaching out to him, but there is a reciprocity thing that wears out on me after a little while, and I'd reach out and ask Jesse, and I'd get the same old text back that everything is cool. He's just real busy with work, real busy with this, real busy with that, but we weren't seeing him in meetings. Last meeting, I think I saw him, he had signed up for a lead sometime before COVID hit. And I texted him and reminded him that he had that lead, because I really didn't think he was going to come through with it, because he hadn't been coming around. But he did show up for that meeting and gave that lead that night. And every time something like that would happen, I would hope that would be the catalyst that would push him back in again. But he had, in my history of watching him walk, drift. He just drifts slowly. He just you just don't see him quite as much, and then you don't see him, and you don't see him, and the next thing you know, he has drifted away, and then have something come crashing back. And I think, if I remember right, this last time he came back, he didn't come back out of a consequence. All the other times that he came in off of some DUI or some other consequence. And this last time he came in, he just came in. He just decided that he got beaten up enough out there by now that he wanted to
get sober before he turned 40.
Wanted to get sober. Yeah. His birthday is
for some reason, Dan, I don't know why, but I feel like it was Shane's getting the call from the bar and contacting him in that manner that actually brought him back to us that time.
Yeah, that sounds right to me too. That's my recollection, and it kind of goes with that other thing I say all the time. If I knew I was going to be telling the story, I'd have kept better track.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do. That seems to be right. After being in the program, I come in 2011, and I got close to a guy real quick. And that's the funny thing about coming in these rooms, and that's something that's happened to me since the first time I came in, before I said my third tradition in my belt, where I actually did want to get sober. I made friends with a man really quick. And it was like 2 weeks later, I walked up, and I'd already captured a sponsor, and I was working with him. And when we got there early, he said, you need to sit down for a minute. I need to tell you something. And I said, what? He said, well, Joe drank a quart of whiskey or a quart of vodka the other night and blowed his brains out. And I thought, is this some kind of joke? And that was my first slam with somebody, the death in around these rooms. And ever since then, it's been a constant stream. It's just that I never knew death like I know death today. Hanging around here, people lose this battle so often. I know at times that it's, a weekly thing that somebody within, 4 or 5 degrees of me, I hear about passing from one reason or another, and it doesn't have to be. He's talking, Mark and I were talking today, rarely does somebody actually just sit and drink themselves to death. Your body shuts down usually before you can get that much alcohol in you. You're going to pass out. It's tough to drink yourself to death. It's going to come and get you something like this, like a car accident, or it's going to get you because you couldn't quit smoking cigarettes while you were drinking, and you weren't going to quit drinking. It gets you in other ways. That's a cunning, baffling, powerful thing, that, and I wouldn't have picked a car crash. It was, I had a time in my life where I was looking at a way out, and there was no way. My main thing was I wanted my family to get the insurance money. So I didn't want it to look like a suicide. And one of my ways out was a car crash. I was looking at some places where I could really get some speed up. There's a hill up in the Knobs where if I got a lot of speed up, and that big tree right there is not going to give, that if I hit that hard enough, and what kept me from doing it is being scared that it wouldn't work, that I'd end up crippled, I'd end up banged up or whatever. But that was one of the ways out that I thought about. And when I heard about how Jesse went, man, that memory popped right back up of that was a purpose. I was looking at that solution for a way out of the madness at one point. So if anybody else has got anything particular memory wise to share, I'll open it to that, or we can shift the gears to what this disease does to us when we're not putting it into remission.
I just wanted to add real quick on a lighter note, Marshall, thank you for reminding me. One of the funniest memes ever, I would vote it for the meme hall of fame in the group me that we had, was Jesse, and I can't show it because it has somebody else's head on there, but he's doing his hand calm down a bit gesture, and the head is floating underneath him as if he's healing him with his hands. I love that meme so much. You remind me of that, Marshall. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that too. You know, all those memories of you know, the creativity inside that guy. Never really give that a lot of thought, to be honest. That it slipped me about how much people mean to you, and like that Jesse meant a lot to a lot of people, and he couldn't see that. When I think Darren and Christopher both said that. I kind of need that reminder sometimes too. There's a recipe for success in this program, and we all here know what it is. And that is a pretty plain and simple recipe. You know, I mean, it's Christopher talked the other night to me, you know, you get in your sponsor's hip pocket and you do what he says to do. And you turn your life over to somebody else. And there's also a real distinct recipe that you see when people are not treating their alcoholism. That not calling your sponsor, stop going to meetings, you know, that whole little recipe that happens. And every time I see somebody, you know, starting down that path, you know, we've had some guys walk off here lately. I've had 2 sponsees, and then real recently decide that Alcoholics Anonymous wasn't for them, or hey, this just doesn't feel right, I'm gonna go try that. And you know, more power to you, because we have this journey where that just seems to be what we have to do. You know, it seems like we have to beat our head against every fucking door in that place, except for this one. You know, and then finally you end up at the, like so many people say, at the end of the block. You say, okay, and I'm a story of that. I didn't know this was the last stop for me. You know, I tried other things, and when I got pinned up against a corner, this was the only thing left to go back to. And once I had that level of surrender in me, then you know, I haven't looked back since then. But this deadliness issue, and what happens when we stop treating our disease is it's almost cliche. You see what happens when people take certain steps. And Ross, you had something else you wanted to say real quick?
Yeah, thanks. I just didn't want to leave this out. Hey, I'm Ross. I'm an alcoholic. He was also an amazing employee. His work talked about him as being such a mentor to the whole entire place where he worked. And he helped so many people advance in their careers, and they owed it to him, and they shared that. So I just did. He an amazing brother, friend, and an amazing employee and a mentor. So I don't leave that out. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. The big book talks about that, about them people, and how when we get well, just how good of workers we tend to be. And that was what 1935 Bill was writing that. And it's still true. Mm-hmm. You know, I heard a rumor, and I don't remember who told it to me. It might've been Ross, but that when you're making wooden tokens and carving a figure number 1 out of a wood, and somebody told me that went into his casket with him. Another thing that really touches me. So Darren, I see hands now. My hands, I told the other night I was watching this, the hands on my machine have turned flesh color, and they actually don't stand out so well. It's kind of a tan color against a white background. And when a while back, they were blue, and they really stood out. Darren, what you got, brother?
I remember one more thing about him.
Sure.
We were making this record, and I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months in, I stopped hearing from him. And I knew what was going on. I mean, I'd known Jesse for pretty much all of his 8 years. So I called him, and he said, man, I really want to keep making this record, but I'm drinking. And I said, Jesse, you're my friend, man. I accept you for who you are. If you want to keep making this record, we'll keep making this record. You know, this is not AA, man. This is just two friends making music. So we did, and the cool thing was, you know, not too long after that, he came back in. Of course, he went back out, but he came back in. But it's that was one thing that it's that way for a lot of people. Is, you know, they always think they know how somebody else feels about them, and it's completely couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, you know, everybody that goes out, when they come back, I think I love them more just because I know how much courage it takes to come back from that. And this guy did this like for 8 years, man. He would get 6 or 8 months together, and then sometimes not even that, and go back out and come back. I mean, the courage that takes. But it's just the I don't think of the word. I guess I'll just use what they say in the big book: the cunningness and the baffling of this disease. How it talks to us and tells that we're not worthy, we don't deserve this, and you know that was Jesse's demon. Was that voice in his head that said, "You're not good enough." That voice that somebody planted in there a long, long time ago. I don't know who it was, but I got a pretty good idea who it was, but I don't know who it was. And just his self-worth was for somebody that was, I mean, he was a beautiful guy, beautiful spirit, just couldn't see it. Thanks for letting me share again. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Darren. I know that
Thanks, Darren.
I do know and have, you know, there's something that Jesse shared, and his true passion really was that music, you know, and as good as an employee he was, and the intelligent engineer that he was, one, in my estimation, one of the demons of Jesse was he wasn't able to actually get himself convinced that he could follow that passion. He was trapped in a place that he couldn't release and live that real true passion that he had inside. And I know that Darren, and I know that between Darren and Jesse, from talking to Jesse, the connection that was made while you guys did that work was on another level too. That coming together, Jesse had shared that with me. Christopher.
So when I heard about what happened to Jesse, I couldn't muster any reaction, and that really bothered me because being over 36 years sober and being in the professional field for 15, 16 years, I don't know how long it's been now, 17 almost. You just become so immune and used to, I guess is the word I'm looking for. You get used to death. And when somebody comes to you and tells you what happens to one of our friends who we already knew was in danger of that because they weren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, you have this sort of reaction like, yep. I mean, like, no surprise. Like, you walk away from the solution, and this disease is all powerful. So one of the traditions we have in this program that I was taught by my sponsor, and sometimes it ruffles feathers, but I am a firm believer in this, that we honor our dead in the program by telling it their truth about how the disease got them. This is not to denigrate the person, and that's why we wanted to spend the first part of the podcast honoring Jesse's spirit without the disease, because what we know from recovery is that we're not just alcoholics and addicts. We're fully rounded human beings that have all kinds of sides. But if we don't tell the truth on a person's truth, then the newcomer gets nothing out of it. And if the newcomer gets nothing out of someone's death, then the death was senseless. It was pointless. But you think about all the ways and all the suffering and all the hells that we go through at the end, all of that means nothing if it can't benefit somebody down the road because we tell the stories. and we honor our dead by telling the story. So I wanted to preface it by saying that. But our stumbling block on the sponsor journey for Jesse was in the 9th step, which tends to trip up a lot of people. 5th step, then 9th step, and then ultimately the 12th step, not sponsoring people. And I'm amazed how many people stop and don't turn around and give it back, and that gets them. I see that a lot actually in my treatment center for people who have dutifully done the steps, but they stopped at the point where they didn't feel like they could sponsor somebody. That there were certain people on his amends list that his ego would not allow him to face and to, accept responsibility and face his truth. And so I know that was a key stumbling block for him, but really maybe even deeper than that. You all talk about his true passion being music, and I agree with that. But Jesse and I had some really personal, deep talks in my car. And the whole basis of TSSR is to find your authentic original self, original soul. And I used to ask him all the time, I'd say, Jesse, what do you want? What's your real dream? Because he would make these sarcastic remarks all the time about his job, saying that he was making the world safe by making the most perfect French fry making machine. And it was in such a way that he would say it, you could tell that that was not his passion. He was obviously very good at what he did, and he was excelled in his workplace. He was always getting crazy bonuses that made me extremely jealous, but he wasn't really happy. And I would tell him constantly, if you're not living your passion and you're not finding what makes you happy in your recovery, people tend to backslide and they become dry, and then they become bitter. You don't want to do that. Become one of those bitter old timers, just making fun of newcomers and picking on everybody and just taking everybody else's inventory and being resentful. So I'd say, what is it, man? What do you envision for yourself if everything were to work out for the best? And he said, I want to live by the water, probably in Florida, and I want to have my own fishing boat. And I would be happier than I would ever be in my whole life just to go out and fish and sustain myself. And maybe play my guitar every now and then, but really it was the fishing and being on the water and escaping into that. That was his dream. And then when we would talk about it, he would kind of back up off it and say, well, it's just not possible. And it wasn't possible because of this commitment. It wasn't because of that commitment. And I've got this. And I'd be like, oh, Jesse, recovery is the game changer, man. And what do we talk about? It's in the first paragraph of how it works. Bill Wilson, our co-founder, said 3 times honesty, self-honesty, honesty with self, rigorous honesty. On our chips, to thine own self be true. What this whole deal is all about is once I find out who I am underneath all the gunk that I get free of in 4 and 5, and then making my amends and get free of that, that self has to be honored, at least that I'm trying to get there. You may not even get there by the time you die, but I have a focus that my job and this relationship and all that is not the end all be all. This is my true self, my true north that I'm working towards. And he just lost sight of that all the time. It just seemed so far away to him and impossible. And then the one last thing I'd say about it is, you're right, guys. I've seen this 1,000 times with our particular mental illness, and this is a mental illness. We have this wall up that cannot feel, hear, and receive the love that we get, or that is there for us from other people. I'll never forget one of my favorite speakers, Keith L., talks about the fact that he grew up believing his dad never told him he loved him, never once told him he loved him, and that was at the top of his resentment list for why he was drinking himself to death. Come to find out, when he made amends and saw the truth of the situation, his dad told him he loved him all the time. He just couldn't hear it, and he couldn't let it in because of his resentment against his dad. So therefore, he'd never have it. That's how twisted up mentally ill we are, and the damn psychiatrists never understand it. They just don't. You got to go to a lot of meetings and hear a lot of stories, and you'll hear the parallels between all of us. We have this brain that just, I have it to this day. I'm sober, and then sometimes I have days where I'm like, nobody really cares. Nobody gives a shit. They say they do, but they really don't. They're not really there for you. And it's almost like when you become deathly ill or you really need somebody, and then when everybody shows up. I mean, one guy in our group recently, just today, was posting on the Marco Polo about how astonished he was that people were showing up. It genuinely surprises us that the world is not entirely hostile. But again, I love Jesse to death, and I am so sorry for his loss. And it was so unnecessary. That's a damn thing that makes me angry about all this. But it is the course of this illness. So for the newcomer, just end on this. Don't freaking walk away, man. Oh, and then I got to add this too, because this is so important. The minute you start getting that feedback from a guy who's out there, and we know each other, like, well, who are you talking to? Who do you think you're fooling? We are all straight up addicts and alcoholics. We know the territory. And you're going to sit here and tell us you're fine, that everything's great. And we know you're lying, man. And the disease is speaking for you. And the minute I start getting that shit back from a guy like, no, everything's great, man. Leave me alone. I'm good. I'll get back to you. Take me off your list, like Marshall said. It's just the damn disease has got them at that point. And that's when we get the word they died. You're just like, yep. Sucks. Thanks for letting me share. And thank you, Dan, for doing this. You guys, this is really healing. I really appreciate everybody in this room tonight. Thanks.
Love you,
Thanks for bringing what you carry with the time
Yeah,
and the
thanks,
knowledge and the
Christopher.
wisdom
Thanks.
you have.
Yeah.
You are a treasure to us. Frank.
Yeah, I'm a frank alcoholic. I remember, and this is not what I raised my hand for, but my brain's kind of all over the place right now. I remember in IOP how you, Christopher, you would, and in aftercare too. I mean, when something unfortunate happened to somebody, at first I thought, this is one sick, morbid son of a bitch. But it made sense eventually. Of course, that when somebody dies or something awful happens to someone, you wanted us to see that and hear that. We knew that person, and that is a part of this that it outright isn't. Well, I can't say that on here, I guess. But
Yeah, you say anything.
It fucking sucks. It fucking sucks. I hate it. And Jesse, man, hit hard. I remember when I saw it on GroupMe, and this is not what I want to talk about either, but I saw it on GroupMe, and I was like, I think I was in disbelief pretty much. And everybody was saying all this shit. All I could say was fuck. I didn't know what else to say. And people do go away that we miss, we forget. I mean, I'm sorry. I like to say I'm a great guy. I don't forget anybody, but it happens. There's people who haven't shown up and I forgot they didn't show up, And something with death with me, I just wanted to say this, is that like right now, I have a very clear picture of Jesse in my head. I can see him in my mind's eye. I can see him very clearly. I don't want to ever fucking forget that. I want pictures of him because I know what happens. I forget these people. I start having an image in my mind and it's not accurate what they actually look like. I want to see what he looks like right now. If that makes any sense to anybody, I want to see him. I don't want to forget him. He was a very special person, and I don't know if anybody else, but this is one last thing and then I'll shut up. But something that stuck in my mind too, when I was when his last, his birthday, he had his 1 year that I felt like he was on the path, I mean, I really did. And something about his dad stuck in my head, I guess they were both in recovery, they had I'm sure they had a long road and all kinds of shit, to them. And when he died, I very quickly thought of his dad. I thought of the pain this disease causes. We don't think about everybody else, and I saw his dad, and like I said, I knew they probably had a troubled relationship, but I could just see a look in his eyes that was really powerful. And I thought, God, what's his eyes look like now? What does he feel like now? And it's just, I'm mad at what this fucking disease does to people. I'm pissed off about it. That's all I got.
Thanks, Frank.
Thanks, Frank.
To Travis.
Hey guys, Travis, alcoholic. I was just thinking when I was new in recovery, and I had just met Jesse, and we went down to his lake house there at Rough River, The first time I ever did a guided meditation, I got to go in a cave with Jesse in the pitch ass dark, hold hands. I didn't even know these fucking guys, right? And I'm like, Jesse, what the fuck have you got me into here? You know, we're in a fucking cave holding hands, praying in the pitch black and doing a guided meditation. First time I ever had done something like that with another man. And he told me, you know what? He hugged me and said, you know what? We'll love you until you love yourself. And you know what? I wish I could hug him right now and tell him that, man. Jesse had the world by the balls. You know, I mean, he had everything. And I feel like Jesse's a smart guy, right? He knew the consequences. He knew the consequences. And we all know the consequences. Like fucking Russian roulette, man. You know, we fucking spin that fucking revolver, man, and we pull that trigger. And I think the two biggest lies this fucking disease tells us, and I know it told him, was come on, man, just one more time, because it fucking tells me that. And the other one is that shit will never happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I want Jesse to be a constant reminder to me, and I want his death to mean something. And that's what happens to us when we decide to fucking take one more fucking drink or say that shit ain't gonna happen to me.
Yep.
You know, his death is a fucking tragedy, man. You know, it was not his fucking time, and I miss him. When I found out that he had passed, I was in my garage and I had to fucking sit down. Like it was that heavy for me, man. I just started sobbing. I was fucking sad. And some people talked about being angry about it and this and that, but I was just sad for him and his family. And that I wasn't going to get to spend any more time with him, man. And that's what I wanted to say. And I love you, Jesse, and thank you for being a part of my journey and my recovery.
Thanks, Travis.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, brought back that memory of getting that phone call, and then I don't know, it was like a half hour later or something. I was still shocked away from it, and get a phone call from a newcomer, and you know, and I tell him the truth because I think it's important that you tell those, you know, you tell them this is what happens, dude, and don't think that this won't happen to you. And, you know, and that I got that kind of shrug it off bullshit. Like, yeah, well, you know, I'm really sorry for you. Man, my wife is really being a bitch today, you know, and you're like, dude, we just lost a good, you know, a fucking very good friend here. And you're worried about your wife being on the rag today. It's astonishing. I did find that. I don't know if we can.
There it is.
That's the obituary picture. Get it turned just right.
Great picture.
It's a good dude, man.
Dan, I wanted to add to that wall of denial, as Stevie Ray Vaughan called it so well from knowing it personally in his journey. There's so many times in group when I'm railing on about, you know, don't kid yourself that this isn't going to happen to you, and it's only a matter of time, blah, blah, blah. And then I get that effect that one of my old counselors used to joke. She called it the codfish effect. The codfish are just sitting there looking at you like, bloop, bloop, just completely blank-faced, that none of what you said got in past the walls. Zero.
Yep, that is. Ross, you have your hand up, brother?
Hey, I'm Ross. I'm an alcoholic. I wanted to say that, you know, as my disease is constantly trying to kill me, I learned things today a lot on pain. And it seems like the more it hurts, the more I come out of it and learn a lesson. And I want to say this is, I don't know how it's going to come out. All I'm saying is that I learned a lesson and he saved my life. Because if I don't choose recovery first, I'm dead. And my disease is knocking at my door, waiting for the moment that I choose not to do recovery and not to do this work with you guys and step out there for another one, or just step out there and not even put anything in me, but just be miserable inside. and the pain, the anger. I mean, I'm mad, you know. I'm mad that we have to talk to him like this today. I'm mad that the disease got him, and then it turns into fear, and it turns into, it could be me, it could be any one of us, and he saves my life. Saved my life because it's here. Stay, guys. Anybody coming in hearing this for the first time, stay. Thanks, guys. I love you.
Thanks, Ross.
Hell
Thanks,
yeah.
Ross.
Just to say now, I don't know if this is going to work. I'm going to see if it will.
Is that me? You're asking me.
I kind of already did it completely. Can you hear that?
You did a really good one. I don't know how much I can add. I guess I can just speak to from the new guy to the new guy. You know, like we said before, find a group of guys you like who have what you want. Do what they do. You know, I'll speak in the cliche. Do what they do, and that means the shit you want to do and the shit you don't want to do. Get all in. I guess that's my biggest change in recovery is taking down my own walls. That, if you want to say living small, I wanted to live small in recovery. I wanted to live big in the madness, but you know, I artificially put up walls. But I wanted to live small. Yeah, I wanted to drink all the beers. But in recovery, I don't know why, but I guess that's part of our sickness and our disease, is I didn't want all the blessings. And I don't know why. I'll never know why. But I do know that if you take down the walls, the blessings will come. And if you stick with the guys who do what you want and have what you want and do what you want to do and align with, it'll all just work out. And that's juice, man. Thanks, man. I appreciate being here. And I love whoever listens to this. I love you. Thanks for coming in, man. It's always a joy.
That hit me like a pile of bricks this morning when I was listening to it. Knowing what to do ain't quite enough. Darren, you got your hand up, brother.
Yeah, by the way, when you just played that recording, that bird started moving like crazy behind you.
Oh, get it?
I haven't seen it move at all, but it moved a lot. Anyway, I remember I was driving downtown. I was on 65, and Jesse had just finished mastering the first song, and he had sent it to the radio station, and I would get notifications when they played it, and I missed the first one that they played. And so I was, hang on one second, somebody's coming in here.
Intruder.
I'm on the phone real quick. I'll be done in a second. So I was listening, and it was a local radio station, and not all the songs on there are that great. But there's this one song that come on, and it really was good. And I was listening to it, and that voice, I knew that it was Jesse. And his song come on, and I was listening to this song, and it was really good. And it was about what Christopher was talking about. It was about Florida and missing Florida, and because he loved to go down there. And one of the coolest lines I've ever heard in any song, I can't remember what he rhymed it with or anything, but one of the lines said, "I miss my swampy shoes." And I could just picture these old beat up Converse, like gray from soot and stuff, and from green from algae, and the visualization that he could create. He was a great songwriter. But the reason I raised my hand was it was I think it was like the year before he did the variety show with me and Shane. I did another one, and he didn't participate that year. He was going back and forth to China a lot. And I think he was back out, and well, I know he's back out. And I was talking to somebody, and I'm not going to say their name. They knew Jesse, I knew him quite well, very well. And I remember talking to him about him going back out. And he said, Jesse can't, he didn't say admit, because Jesse would always admit that he was an alcoholic. My mind remembers him saying, Jesse can't accept that he's an alcoholic. And that was why he would always go back out. That was always why he would get behind the wheel, because he just couldn't accept it. He knew it, but his ego and this disease would not let him accept the fact that he was an alcoholic. And that's a key piece, and that's something that he missed, and it killed him. And it's sad. And I'm with Frank. It sucks. And I'll be happy to send you all the pictures that I can find of him. And Dan is welcome. Anybody that wants our songs that we recorded together, Dan has them. I have them. I can send them to you on Dropbox, or he can. You're all welcome to them. If you Google search Jesse Simpson music, you can find some stuff that he did on there. He would take, he would cover songs. He would play every single instrument, sing every single vocal piece, whether it was background or lead vocal. He did the whole song, and some of them was really good. He did a Joe Walsh song that was amazing. So that's what he left behind, that we can still keep him alive. You know, his music is always going to be there, and we can keep him alive that way. And we can also keep him alive by doing what we're doing now. And that's sharing the beauty that he was, but also the tragedy that this was. He was, we weren't that close, but there was this connection that it felt like we'd known each other for lifetimes. Mm-hmm. And we were just bonded that way. Neither one of us could say it, though. I don't know what it was about that, but we were really deeply connected. But I'm going to have to jump off here, guys. I love you all, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah, man. Thank you for your time tonight, Darren.
Love you, Darren. Love you, Darren.
Thanks, Darren. Love you, buddy.
Love you,
Thanks
Darren.
for doing
Thanks,
this,
man.
Dan. I appreciate it. Love you guys.
Sharing your stories with us tonight, and just thank you for helping us put together this tribute. It wouldn't be, it would be missing something if you weren't here, my man.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Well, we'll do the old concluder round. Does anybody just kind of keep them breathe a couple minutes, and we'll shoot around the corner. And I think what I'm gonna close out, I got some of Jesse's music as he played it across the podcast table from me, and I'll play that to close out the recording. We can hang around and chat a little bit if you want to.
Hey, Dan, I'm moved on my heart to say one thing before we get to the closure, and that is, and I'm not even sure I can say this or how to say this, but I want to honor his wife who went through this journey with him, because I got to know her during outpatient and during family day at the very beginning, and she was very sweet and so extremely supportive. I mean, you couldn't ask for a more supportive, loving wife, in my opinion, that I saw at first. And then, of course, alcoholism, the ravages of that just destroys a relationship and the intimacy between them. But I just have this picture, I mean, for some reason, of her just sort of standing by while he's spinning his bullshit and going, like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. He's full of shit. And she seemed very practical minded about being able to call him out, and he accepted it. There was never animosity between them about that. But boy, did she suffer mightily, because if there's a guy that I can think of with their story who's the king of the DUIs, I don't know why that guy avoided how he avoided major prison time. I would often go through his litany. 5, was that it? I would go through his litany and how he would skate, because one was just right at the edge of another one, and blah, blah, blah. And the circumstances were just right. The stars aligned. But she was right there with having to go down, bail him out, and deal with the embarrassment and the humiliation of name being in the paper and what's work going to say. And work was aware. And it was just a nightmare for her and his mom too. And you know, we're sitting here talking about him, and I just feel like it was a little selfish and self-centered not to talk about their pain and what they had to go through with this damn disease. So God bless them, and I hope they get some solace out of this. He was a very loved man by a lot of people, but I'm sorry for your all's loss too. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, thank you, Christopher. That definitely needed to be said. Thank you. So you want to run around real quick with a concluding thought and whatever's on your mind, and you don't have to have something either. You can pass if you don't.
I just wanted to say thank you, Dan. This was a great idea. I really appreciate it. I know it's helped me get a little more closure than I had before. Yeah, just thank you. And thank you to everybody else here that shared too. It's been helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Thanks for coming in, sharing those. Again, I'm hearing stories I didn't know.
My concluder was kind of what I already said earlier. Just thank all of you all for being here tonight and help me carry this weight I've been carrying and not really talking too much about it. It's helped me out a lot tonight, and I love you all. I love you, Jesse. That's it.
I think the camera kind of goofed up again. Sometimes it hangs up. Like now it's got, well, one of my things has got Christopher highlighted. One of them's got me. Maybe it did work. Marshall, Ross, Travis.
I didn't know if that meant I was supposed to go next or not, but my concluder is on the positive, and that is there is a solution. And Bill Wilson was very prophetic in being able to title one of the beginning chapters that for the newcomer to understand that there's a way out of this madness. And anybody that's struggling out there needs to hear. We who have found the freedom and yeah, I'm always tempted to call it a cure. It's not a cure. It's a daily reprieve. I get all that. But being 36 and a half years free of this fucker, I don't know whatever you'd call that, but I call that a goddamn cure, baby. It works. And just by following some simple suggestions. And those of us who have a little bit of time, me and Dan and Shane and, you know, have a few years here, we take it so much for granted, man. I mean, I never think about it. I don't think about using today. I don't think about having to work at being sober. It's just part of my life. And that's the freedom that awaits anybody that will just lower their ego enough to follow some simple suggestions. That's it. Just try to live on a spiritual basis. Practice these guidelines, not perfectly, but to the best of your ability. And you get so much out of it. The wealth of bounty that comes to us from working these 12 steps, we do not deserve based on our past lives. But every time we lose somebody, guys, it's another reminder that we're just one short step away, and make sure we get to our meetings. And somebody, I'll just end on this. Somebody said that in our home group, I think the other night about, you know, those basic, simple things like, you know, why the fuck can't people just follow that? Just show up, talk to your sponsor, take your inventory, talk to your higher power, blah, 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 simple shit. And then the disease finds a way to weasel in and just get you to leave. You know, I'm never leaving. I'll just put that out there. I pray I don't, but I'm just saying that's one lesson I've learned from sitting in so many meetings over all these years is that you don't walk away. You keep your freaking seat. Have the humility to still come in and admit what you are, be reminded of what you are, and share something to help somebody else. And you don't have to go back out again ever in your entire life, man. This is a cure. And there's so many other fake things out there. Hell, use some CBD oil. That's going to cure everything, right? Fucking bullshit. Come in here and work these simple steps, guys, with a guide and a sponsor. You'll be good. Thanks for letting me share. And Dan, thank you for putting this together. It really did help heal me too. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Christopher. I love you to death. You know that. I just love what you bring to the table every time. It's just besides just being a big time example of what 36 years does, carrying the message in a way that is show me how, not tell me how. I can watch you. I don't have to hear you. I like hearing you, but but you demonstrate what this program is to probably is to the greatest extent I can imagine. So thank you for doing that and being that beacon of light for us and so many. You're a hell of a dude, man. Next. Go ahead. I don't know, Marshall. I didn't watch the hands.
What we hear a lot is connection is the opposite of addiction. And right here, we've got the opportunity, superstars right here of sobriety and recovery. And we can just reach out and touch it and call you. And we're connected in so many different ways. And it's just right there. It's for everybody. All you got to do is pick up the phone, get in the car, do whatever. We're all right here. Jesse said it just a while ago. He said this time, what was different for him, he was all in. He said he went big. We have to do that. Let's do that. Nothing is stopping us from doing that. We go big. We're all in. We're going big. We're going for more. Once we get more, reach for more. It's out there. You hit the wall, you stumble, whatever, come here. Holler, pick up the phone. Connection. Stay there. Don't go out there and don't fall backwards. I mean, if you do stumble, whatever, reach, grab. Somebody will grab you. Somebody will bring you back in. It's all right, Marshall. Come on.
Thanks, Marshall.
Love you, Jesse.
And thank you too, man, for coming in and sharing what your experiences with this and what Jesse meant to you too, man. So
Thank you, Dan. Thank everybody.
Sell anybody short. I put out that call for people, anybody interested in coming and sharing about Jesse, and a little piece of me was a little thought, dang, man, there ought to be more people to show up for this than that. But I actually look at the roster and I thought, well, God's got this, and that's a hell of a fucking team right there. Mm-hmm. Good stuff. Travis, I saw your hand up and then down.
I was just waiting my turn. What's up, guys? Travis, alcoholic. I was a newcomer when I met Jesse. I didn't know if I was going to do this fucking thing or not. I wanted to be sober, but I didn't really know how. And Jesse's part of the foundation of my recovery. He showed me, and I told Jesse I looked up to him in this program because I did. He showed me something that made me have a little bit of hope and made me believe that I could do this. He made me believe that I could do this with his persistence and his courage to keep coming back. Made me believe, and that's a block in my foundation of my recovery. And Jesse was put right in my path when I needed him to be there, and I just want to say thank you, Jesse, because he's one of the blocks of the foundation of my house of sobriety. And that's why I'm sober today. And I don't give a shit if he went back out or not. I don't give a fuck about that. I love that man. He was there for me. He reached out to me. He welcomed me when I came into this group. And he did everything you're supposed to do for the new guy for me. And that I hope I can honor him and do that for somebody else. That's all. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Travis.
Thanks,
man.
Travis.
Well, thank you, man. Thank you for showing up here and participating in this and participating. I really feel like a lot of people will be touched off of this episode. Ross, you are the second to last concluder.
Hey, I'm Ross. I'm an alcoholic. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this and being in here with you guys and to be able to honor him. They say people say that that are not in our group and they're not in recovery, that they don't know us. They don't know you. Well, we do. We got the honor to know Jesse, and we know them better than anyone that's not in here with us. And we get a chance to see everything. We get a chance to see their whole circle. And I just want to say that Dude, I was not one that people could get along with in the beginning. My fucking ego was outside this world. I was fucking crazy. I was mad at the world, and I didn't want to fucking do it until I wanted to do it. And then I was fucking so self-centered. I was like a fucking bomb. It's either like, it was like that whole time. And Jesse was like, hey man, it's going to be all right, Ross.
Bring it down, little. Bring it down.
Yeah. Yeah. Chill, bro. You know? And he's like, hang in there. And I'm like, and I used to say at the beginning, I'm like, what the fuck's his problem? Because I was a fucking asshole, you know? And I'm like, the fuck's his problem? I'm finally happy. But you know what? He was just trying to level me out. And with him and I, and he was the first person that I like I said before about racing the steps. So he saved my life because I said, oh no, I'm going to beat him. So if I didn't have that person that I wanted to beat, I wouldn't be alive. So he saved my life. And I just want to say to someone new that, or to anybody out there, man, if you're not doing good, man, pick up the phone and just call someone and just say, don't ask them how they're doing. Don't ask them how their day was. Don't ask them what they're eating. Say, hey, bro, I'm not doing too fucking good. You got a second? And if that motherfucker says, well, my wife's on the rag and I want to talk about my wife, you call another motherfucker. Hang up on that dude and you call the next person you know. Because you know what? This is a group here. You guys all save my life every day, man. And if I call one of you and I need you today, you're gonna answer the phone and I need you, or you'll call me right back and you'll talk to me and you'll listen. But if you don't, I'm gonna hang up and call the next motherfucker. But I know you guys are here for me. And the newcomers, anyone newcomer, or it doesn't matter, 45 years. Just be honest when you're on the phone that you're not doing okay. I'm not very good at these speeches, but you know, I just want to say, man, I love you, Jesse, and you know, I'm gonna try a little bit harder next time to help another person when it comes through, so we don't have to say goodbye to you on a Zoom. And I can say hello and I love you in person. And that's the hard part. And this is the first funeral I've been to since my family died. 20 years I haven't been to a funeral. And it was an honor to hear them bless you and how much you meant to them. And I don't want to hear that again either. You know, not from our disease. So there's hope. There's hope. And there's hope. And it's right here. I love you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Ross. Thank you too, man, for coming in and showing up for this deal. I really feel like, I don't know, God had a hold of this thing and had everything play out the way it was supposed to. You said, you know, we're here for one another. You know, we were here for Jesse too, but there's a saying I heard someplace that said, you know, this thing's got the power to change your life. The power to change your life is within your reach, but you have to do some reaching. You really do. You can't, you know, we try, but you know, you can't make somebody turn that corner.
Right.
You talk about that thing about people knowing each other, and that's the thing, we get to know each other. If we keep on contact with one another, then we kind of like have a thermometer in one another's mouths, you know. We kind of can tell one another's temperatures. You know, you start disconnecting and we don't know what your temperature is anymore. And we have so many fantastic tools today to stay connected. And can you just imagine, like, you know, what the difference between when Bill wrote that book and what kind of tools we have today that allow us to stay connected? Again, there's just no real excuse. There's no valid excuse about why you couldn't reach out except for that damn disease, man. Because like I said, Jesse said in there, he was all in, but man, 1 second later he was all out, you know, in a blink of an eye kind of thing is what it feels like. It's I hit some turning point lately, and it dawned on me kind of like, I don't know when it happened or whatever, but this new way of being has become me today. You know, it's no longer, like Christopher said, it's not a struggle for me to like stay away from a drink or a drug anymore. That's really not a problem. Living is still a problem. I still have to deal with this thing called life and all the craziness and the other stuff that goes around with it. But and I'm fortunate to be able to say that with truth in my heart that that's not in me at the moment. That it, and when I'm working with a new guy, I got to continue. That's like Christopher said about that step 12. I didn't really think about that, but I have thought about it. But I didn't think about the level Christopher said. You know, we lose them in 4 and 5, and we lose them in 9. You know, they lose the thing. But again, when you said something about people who are sponsoring people, and I looked around this room. And everybody in this group is sponsoring somebody or is willing to sponsor somebody, the first person that steps up. And that's why we have what we have. It's a vital step, man. It's like when you look at holes in people's programs, sponsoring other people is probably one of the most visible ones you can see. Again, I don't think these 12 steps are an a la carte deal. It wasn't taught to me that way. It's a do them all. I don't get to pick which ones I want. And the saying I hate really bad, but I keep on ringing in my ears is that the fact is that some people seem to have to die for us to live. I don't like that saying. I don't like the thought behind it, but it keeps on seeming to be somewhat true. Because if you and I don't see that story right there, the disease will start telling us something different. It'll tell us something different even because we saw it. But with that evidence in our hands, we know what the outcome is. I don't have to guess about what might or might not happen. I'm pretty convinced of where I will go if I don't. You know, you said something about a cure, and the way I put it, I say so I can put this into remission permanently. Not necessarily cured, and I totally get the cure thing too because the bill says we're recovered, past tense. But we do have a program that will allow us to put this disease into remission permanently. You just got to do those things Christopher said, and the rest of you guys. I really appreciate y'all giving me the opportunity to do this tonight. Appreciate everybody to show up and speak your mind and your heart and what that dude meant to us and what your recovery means to you. It's an honor to walk side by side with all you guys. A true honor. We do have something very, very special. And I know there's corners of the world that's probably got something similar. I sure as hell hope there are. But I don't see it a lot. And I do see it here, and I've seen it since the day I walked into the spiritual underground. It's just something special, this next level recovery and next level connection with one another where it is the real deal. So I will close out with the same 2 statements that I always close this podcast out. And then I'm going to drift out with a little bit of this acoustic guitar that Jesse played when he was in the studio. That is episode 112. I think Marshall said that on the air too, but it helped me today to listen to it. So maybe it would help you to tune into it too. If you're not having a blast in your recovery, it's your own damn fault. And thank you, everyone out there, for allowing the men in this room and I to participate in our recoveries in this manner tonight. Peace out.
a slow boat with nowhere to go.